The naturalists and conservationists of all ages have had a passion for this land, and we owe them thanks for fighting to preserve it in the untouched state we enjoy today.
The circles are the bear kills.
Black bear fatalities along this roadway were one of several reasons why local forestry people, conservationists, and concerned citizens have worked to help protect endangered species like the black bear, the Florida panther, scrub jays, and others. The scrub jay is a rare bird that is unique to this habitat.
There's one right there.
Jim Thorson was a forest ranger here in the Ocala for a number of years before retiring.
And this is the type of habitat that they prefer. They like a low understory vegetation with very little canopy, because the canopy is when the Cooper's hawks and the other predators come in, and that's what they don't like.
Jim now does consulting and is a major advocate and volunteer for the Florida Black Bear Scenic Byway.
The area that we're looking at right here is a high elevation area in what is known as the ancient island scrub. When everything else was an ocean all around us 3 million years ago, this was probably an island, a sand dune that was stuck out in the ocean. And there's certain plants that grow on here that usually don't grow anyplace else. And one of them is the Calamanthi ashii, which is commonly called the scrub mint. And if you pull off there a stem and you roll the leaves up, it's almost like a mint, and it smells very good.
Back in the days when the Native Americans were here, there was a huge shell mound, probably 20 feet high. There may have been 35 acres here, according to some of the early archaeologists. The middens indicate these large shell areas that were formed from the St. Johns River. It was a freshwater shell, and they would brew the broth and use the flesh from the snail, and the shells over thousands of years accrued to a midden that was as much as 20 feet high. It was just part of their sort of kitchen garbage heap.
Kathy Lowenstein is another local Forest Service ranger who also is a member of the Florida Black Bear Scenic Byway Committee.
A lot of the concern is what the impacts of the road is on the natural resources themselves, whether there's fragmentation of wildlife, difficulty in conducting the prescribed burns that are really necessary to keep that natural community functioning the way it is.
Among the planned byway improvements are measures to prevent roadkills to bears and other wildlife. Raised roadways, easements, fences, and under-the-road tunnels designed specifically for wildlife are some of the protection measures. This whole area would probably be less natural if not for the efforts of Marjorie Harris Carr. There were plans to build a barge canal across the state, which would have devastated the fragile ecosystem of the area. For over 15 years, Marjorie Harris Carr led the charge to stop the barge canal. Both Marjorie and her husband, Archie Carr, were noted and influential conservationists who contributed to the preservation of the Ocala in its natural state. In honor of her efforts, the Cross Florida Greenway was named after her. This is Chris Kincaid, another local Forest Service ranger.
There's a lot of things I love about Florida, and particularly this area of the state here in Central Florida, but the vast wetlands and the river systems are just really incredible. The wildlife is out of this world. People come from all over the world to Florida just to see some of the lesser known species. Out of all the places I've been, the wildlife here in Florida is probably the best that I've seen.
In the 1700s, William Bartram came through here passionately cataloging the native plants, wildlife, and tribal people of the area. The local Indians called him the flower hunter, and his euphoric accounts brought worldwide attention to the beauty and mystery of the area. In the 1800s, many people started to discover this wild land. During the 1870s and 1880s, steamboats brought tourists up the St. Johns and Ocklawaha rivers. This is still a marvelous spot to unplug and unwind.
The people coming down in the steamboat days would stop off here at Bluffton or Orange Bluff and then put in to a smaller skiff that would go on down to De Leon Springs to the resort.
There are several world-class springs along the byway.
Juniper Creek. That's the most perfect water I think I've ever been in my life. The water is not cold, it's there by the bridge.
You're talking about Juniper Wayside there?
Yeah, Wayside.
On 19.
Silver Springs, Alexander Springs, Juniper Springs, Fern Hammock Springs, Silver Glen Springs, and Salt Springs. Each has its own unique features and charms. Yes, those are blue crabs swimming around at Salt Springs. Marine life in an inland spring? Yep, it's evidence of a large part of Florida being underwater a long, long time ago. It can get pretty hot here in the summer. Even this grasshopper made sure he stayed in the shade on his trip down these steps. So visitors and local folks come to swim in the refreshing crystal clear water of the springs.
Here we are at Jan and Al's River Park Cafe along the scenic byway, and we're sampling some real cracker food here. Here's the mystery of grits that not very many people know. It's not a grain, it's not a rice, it's not barley, it's actually ground corn. This was the cracker staple for a long time. Even at the poorest of times, you could always grind corn and make grits. Now it's become a delicacy. You go into restaurants these days and you pay lots of money for grits. I call it the revenge of the crackers. This is how you eat them at lunchtime and dinner time. Never as a breakfast cereal. But if you're a real cracker, you eat these things as a side dish with lots of butter on top of them. Not margarine, but real butter. You just have to drown the grits. Real southern grits.
Florida's oldest tourist attraction is on the west end of the byway, Silver Springs Nature Park. This is one place you are guaranteed to see wildlife. Up close and personal. Look for the rhesus monkeys in the trees along the Silver River. Originally brought here in the late 1930s, the monkeys have since gone rogue. Other TV shows and movies have been shot here over the years, including the 1960s hit TV show Sea Hunt and the horror classic Creature from the Black Lagoon. Cowhunters, crackers, and conservationists. The story of this byway is a clash of colorful characters. At one time, the area was called the land nobody wanted. Today, like many of the National Forest lands, it's the land of many uses. It's the delicate balance of man working with nature that has helped restore and preserve these forests, rivers, lakes, and springs, and their wildlife. The Florida Black Bear Scenic Byway is a place to experience parts of Florida that are much like they were decades ago. It's an eco-tourism wonderland of greenways and blueways. Come visit the Florida Black Bear Scenic Byway and touch the forest. Discover the wild Florida that has been calling to adventurers, historians, naturalists, and vacationers for centuries.
Did you hear the cracker conjunctive? Jeff used a couple of them. One of them was can't, which is a combination of can't and ain't, can't. But he also said when he tipped the canoe, he didn't tip it and he didn't dunk it. He tunked it, the canoe. Did you hear him say that? All right, that was a new one for me right there. That's the thing about the cracker lexicon. If there isn't a word, then you just make it up.
The Fort Gates Ferry is another unique feature of the byway. In operation since the Civil War, the ferry takes you across Little Lake George for $10 a car.
You ever eat swamp cabbage?
Oh, I love swamp
I heard
cabbage.
it was really good.
It's really good.